Okay.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live episode of To the Moon, Allison, where we talk about the top and trending works in science fiction, fantasy, speculative fiction, and romance. And I'm joined by a fabulous Desi romance author today, Noreen Mughees, who is here to talk about her debut novel, The Mis-Arrangement of Sana Saeed. Welcome, Noreen.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I know we've talked a lot online, but it's so nice to actually talk to you.
Faces.
Yes.
And you're joining us from Snowmageddon, New Jersey, pretty much. Like
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
I'm very sorry, but I'm glad you're in there with heat and water and nothing is frozen over, so we're good.
Yep. Yep. Thank God. We're fine. Cars are fine. Electricity's there. Internet's there. So, yeah.
Emergency ice skates if necessary. Everybody's like black ice, and apparently Domino's Pizza is offering to snowplow and bring you pizza. So if that's,
Yeah.
I don't know if you like Domino's.
Mm,
It's not really my thing, but if it's hot,
no, but I'll take it. I'll take it if they're gonna plow.
that's true. Well, it's funny
That's a good deal.
because okay, so Noreen, your book is amazing, and one of the hashtags I think I use sometimes is foodies who write. And I don't want to say this is a romance with food, but it really is a romance with food, including everything from traditional dishes like biryani and all these things. I'm like, oh, I love that. And then one of your characters has a very strong fondness for McDonald's. Which I did not think I would be finding in a romance novel, because I don't think I've ever seen that before, but it's just awesome. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll talk a little bit about your book, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I am, a South Asian Muslim writer, and I live in New Jersey, and I work full time in government, for the government, and
For the
I,
government.
yes,
It sounds so ominous.
right. And I also write, part time, but sometimes it takes over my life, as it has been with the debut year. A lot of my life has been about promoting this book and launching this, book of my heart, I should say, because I really feel like I wrote the book that I wanted to, and not what like worried about what the market wanted, because being in submission, trying to find an agent, you get told, especially as a
Yes.
martial arts author, over and
Mhm.
over again, you should write this kind of book.
Needs to have
So
this story arc, or the character has to be this way, or make it more accessible for the white people who don't understand any of these things.
exactly, all these foreign words and all these
Yeah.
foreign names you have, like I get
Daniel,
confused, and like, why do you have so many characters? Well, have you looked at a Desi wedding and a
we're
Desi?
huge.
Exactly, like
All
we
the
have,
aunties are here, and they all
yeah.
want to be telling you what to do.
Exactly. And it's like, this is how we live. Like, every
Mhm.
dinner of ours is at least 50 people. And this is just
Mhm.
family and like close family. So, like, our weddings are huge, and it's just like part of who we are. Like, immigrant. I think all immigrant communities are pretty much like that, because it's like trying to find a second family and community, here, because we left all of ours behind, when
Mhm.
we moved. So, yeah, so I wrote the book that I wanted to, pretty much, and I struggled to sell it for a while, but then I did, with the help of my agent, and I'm very proud of the book that I put out. And I've been enjoying all the good reviews, and obviously I try to not to read the bad reviews,
You're
but
not allowed to read the bad reviews, because they're just downers. And it's funny because sometimes I'm kind of mean to myself this way. I like to read the bad reviews of books I love to be like, how could you possibly have any fault with this? And it's almost always something personal, like I wouldn't have done it that way, so therefore this book should get 1 star. And it's like, you are a horrible reviewer. That's not how it works. But I mean, I saw just nothing but glowing praise and love for your book, and I just finished it a day ago, so I haven't had like my thoughts coherent enough, which you'll find out as we talk here, to write a glowing review. Partially because since I listened to it, I'm going to need help on spelling some of this stuff. So fortunately, you have spelled important words like Sana's name, which sometimes sounds more like Sana and sometimes is more like Sana, but I'm like, no, it's Sana. I got that. And then fortunately you have the word ishq spelled out in your like blurb. So that was a new word for me. So anybody who's telling you to not use these foreign words, first off, I like to learn these things. I like those inclusions. And that's what makes these books special and different and not just, hey, look, it's another brunette girl falling for her coworker. Yay. And that's not a song on people who write that because I write that. But it's like
Yeah.
I like reading a variety of romance stories, and I love Desi romance personally, and it's not just because the food, but that is like a bonus for it. So I'm glad nobody made you change those things or say, could you make her more accessible by giving her fewer relatives or something like that.
Yeah, and the thing is, the story wouldn't be what it is right now if I had, because obviously, as a writer, when you go in submission, you get 50 million things as feedback and change this, and then it's more sellable. Well, really, publishing professionals sometimes don't know what sells, to be honest.
Mhm.
Like, they're just trying to understand there is no formula that works. So, but um I always felt like the story had to be in its form that it is right now in order to portray the story that I wanted to tell. Like, yeah, I could write the way they wanted me to, but then it wouldn't have all the elements the way I wanted to present it, and and the people who want to read about these experiences, I would be
Exactly.
cheating them by like diluting it or like making it something that
That
isn't
is,
true to my experience, because I
yeah,
wrote it from my experience and the immigrant experience of people around me. So like, let's say I water down the family to like two people, that wouldn't be true, and
mm-mm.
I grew up watching Indian soaps and Indian dramas, and some of them ran. I mean, I kind of like the soaps here, right? They ran
Yeah,
for thousands of episodes. And
exactly.
you
Do they
know,
switch the actors on you? Because they do that sometimes in American soaps, and you're like, wait a second, that's not. Hey, you don't play. I'm really confused. Who is that? I thought that was your brother. That's your boyfriend. I'm confused.
yeah, and they do that over there too. Like, because like sometimes they'll kill a character and it comes back, and and then
They're
obviously
twin.
yeah, exactly. Or like, replace the characters once the contract is, like we
Mhm.
talked about, like when the contract runs out,
Yeah.
maybe person died or whatever, and then they have to change the actors. Yeah, so but what I found that with that kind of storytelling, at least in the Indian soaps, was like you were trying to get the characters from all these different viewpoints, from the
Mhm.
mothers, from the sisters, from the the love interests, and from the children. So you kind of got a picture of this character not just from these one or two perspectives like you would if it was
Everybody's
just,
weighing in.
yeah, exactly, everybody's weighing in. And I kind of, and that really helps the reader or the viewer make their own opinions about this character, I found.
Yeah.
So those are the stories I fell in love with and I grew up watching, and so I wanted to sort of write those characters, obviously with character arcs in mind. Like, you don't just write characters big cast for no reason. You obviously write
Well, you do
with the
do
main
big
character.
dance numbers when you need like background dancers. So they're there, and that's more Bollywood. That's not really a book. You don't have dance numbers in books. That's a little hard to write. But yeah, you have characters. And I was gonna say, did anybody suggest you write this from everybody's point of view? Because yours is a dual point of view with Sana and Daniel both telling theirs. And I like that because I like how Daniel sees Sana, and I like how Sana sees Daniel or wants to kill him, depending on the chapter. And it's one of those things where like I'm like, oh, did anybody suggest you have Adam as a point of view, or her mother, or her best friend who's like, you're killing me?
you
Any of
know
those, they all weigh in their chapters, but did anybody say, hey, why don't you give 7 points of view?
well, my editor was, because this book started out at 100 some thousand words, and she had to cut it down to where it is right now. So I think if
You
anything,
got
she
it now.
wanted to chop
Yeah.
some of the chapters, and I was like, no, I think I can't chop it below this. Um, but I think you would be surprised. Actually, you wrote it as Sana's point of view, the very, very first version of the book.
Oh, okay.
And Daniel, yeah, and Daniel is a character where you have to give him his point of view, because he is so like, he's so internal. Like, he's one of the
Yeah.
characters I struggle so much with, because he wouldn't reveal much of
Mm-mm.
himself, And that's why, like, I think when you see him through Sana's eyes, and when you actually read his point of view, you see his conflict, like, and how much he struggles with wherever he's, like, with hiding his feelings, or like trying to tell her how much he cares about her, actually. So somebody suggested, an agent at that time suggested, that I have it as a dual point of view. So that was the second version of the book, where I actually wrote as a dual point of view. um Adam, I never really wanted him to give a point of view, because
Enough of him.
yeah, and I feel like, actually, some of the reviewers said that they loved Adam so much that they didn't want Sana to end up with Daniel, because
Like,
they
I
thought
would
he,
kill for an Adam. He's amazing.
I know, because he's like, well, he's a perfectly nice guy, and and the story starts with them meeting. So you are kind of led to believe that, okay, they are good for each other until Daniel shows up.
Like, oh.
But yes, it's like, so it's like a lot of people thought that, and then if I had written a point of view, that would confuse the readers even more, I
Uh-huh.
think.
They're like, wait a second.
Yeah, like, really. And I think, like, above all, I really wanted the story to be about not two men that she had to choose over, but really duty versus love. Because Adam, yeah, he's a character, and he's a great character, but really he
He's
signifies.
duty. He's totally, he's duty. He's just duty. But that's, I mean, I loved how you wrote him, because so often you read characters where if it's a choice between, one's obviously a bad choice and you go, who would pick them? And I love that you didn't write him that way, because like you're reading this and I'm like, he's respectful, like, oh, he has tattoos, oh, he's this, like, you didn't make him out to be like he's the stuffed shirt. He seems like he would be a great guy. And you can see, go, well, yeah, she's not getting the butterflies for him. But I love how Sana is like, okay, love could happen here. It could, and maybe if things had gone differently, that could have worked out. And then your opinion, at least mine did, of Adam kind of changes over time as he shows more and more of himself. But you don't present him as like he's like, this isn't Beauty and the Beast, and like Gaston's this big jerk, and you're like, no, don't do it, because I think most girls or young women, especially ones where one of the things that you add as a complicating factor, for those who haven't read the book yet, go read the book, is that Sana is being asked to take on marriage, not just because her mother would like her to get married and have grandkids, but because she will possibly be named as a guardian of her younger brother, who is autistic and would need a legal guardian after his mom dies. And if she's not married, then I don't know, like the mother makes it sound like if she's not married, then I'm not doing it and you won't be the one to take care of him. And she knows she's the best person to do that. And so she's looking at this as, I'm not doing it just for me or because my mom wants me to, but for my brother and how much she cares about him. And I'm a parent who has neurodiverse children, and I know those struggles of like, sometimes you're not going to put yourself first because what they need is more important. And you balance that really, really well. So what was the inspiration for that part? Do you have people in your life that you're like,
Yeah.
I've lived this, I know this,
Mhm.
or, you know,
Yeah, it's obviously a lived experience. Otherwise, I wouldn't be writing it, because I'm a
I
strong
hope so.
believer in, I don't want to elaborate too much on it, but yeah, it definitely is from a caretaker's point of view, and it definitely is a lived experience. And I know the challenges of somebody who, that they will not be able to take care of themselves, and would need support throughout their lives. And the challenges that this young woman faces, in terms of, okay, I can't just think about myself and, just be single for the rest of my life, because my mother would never allow that to happen. Because, and her mother's thinking is that if she's single, she needs to someone to take care of her, so, like, how is she gonna take care of my son, god forbid, if she's in an accident or something? So she's thinking she needs a unit,
Yeah, it's like layers of support that she wouldn't have to do this
exactly.
herself. And,
Exactly.
if she
So
needs to
so
be able to be there, she needs an additional either income
person.
source or support person. Yeah.
Exactly. So the mom is thinking, because people like, mom's horrible to manipulate her like that. I'm like, she's manipulating her because she knows the reality.
Yeah.
She knows the reality of, taking care of somebody long term, especially from the eyes of a caretaker. And so that's why she forces her to make that decision, on what she wants to do, and she's okay with her like not marrying, but she's like, well, I'll be honest, then I don't want you to take care of him. I'd rather choose my other daughter who has a
Mhm.
support system and has kids and everything in place. So yeah, so I think, so I think, yeah, that comes from a lived experience. And I think I wanted to like paint, like I wanted to write about characters who face real life like situations, it's very easy to write from escapist point of view, especially romances, right? Like I love reading escapist romances, but I'm an
Billionaire
immigrant.
romances.
Exactly. Like I would love to be, Cinderella in a new town, who lost her job and that's the only issue, but I living in immigrant communities and seeing so many issues that are real and surround. So I wanted to bring that a little bit of that perspective into my book, and so that's why I wrote from there.
Well, and you bring in social justice as well, because what Sana is working on isn't just like, yes, she has a job, and a job that ends up including people there that she's like, now I have to work with you. Now I have to share space with you. I don't think I can do this. Where she's dealing with things like environmental health with people. And it's so true that so often places seek out the communities that can't speak for themselves or are unlikely to fight back to be basically their dumping grounds. And then when people get sick, it's like, gee, that's odd and confusing, but it's certainly not our problem. Let's issue some more permits. So I love that you address that as well, because you didn't give her just like, well, it's a frivolous job and who cares if she's doing it or not, and oh, she should just quit if someone's bothering her, because you bring in both that aspect of the social justice, but also the hate that people face if they look different. Especially there was a sign, not a sign, a line where she was saying something about like, this is what she gets for wearing her religion on her head. And I that just struck me, because like the fact that people look at her differently and don't assume like, well, I'm going to assume the worst of you, or I'm going to say hateful things of you, or I'm going to make it a real easy target for you because you look a little different. It breaks my heart, but I'm assuming that's not something you're like, yeah, I just made that up, because that's all too real.
It is, and that's actually part of that is actually based on something that I went through. That the whole note thing is
Oh,
something that I went through in
I'm
my
so
actual
sorry.
job, and because and that's the thing. Like I also wanted to write from a perspective of somebody who who doesn't want to cry wolf, like because oftentimes when people, marginalized folks, speak up, they're labeled as troublemakers.
Yeah.
So what happens a lot of time is they stay quiet and they stay quiet and they don't say anything, and actually they just hurt, you know
Yeah.
the perpetrator, like they encourage those perpetrators to keep saying things. And I think what Sana's issue is, throughout life she just takes the easy road, right? And then she doesn't make decisions, and that's part of what happens in the book too, is like she's not willing to like be like really aggressively vocal about it, and she's like, okay, they're doing their job, and I hope and pray that they find the culprit, and I'm not going to make too much of a noise. I'm just going to take a few days off and then come back to it, which is what happens a lot of times.
Yeah.
I mean, things are changing, times are changing, but I felt like as a first generation immigrant, like immigrant, working in America, I feel like a lot of us face that dilemma every day of when to speak up and when to stay quiet.
Yeah, and especially if it's something where it's anonymous harassment, like when somebody's doing something to your face, you at least know who you're addressing. Whereas if you go
Hmm.
and you complain and it's something that's done anonymously, you could be complaining to the person who did it. Like in
Exactly.
Sana's case, she comes back and has no idea. And she's like, I've worked here for 10 years. It isn't like this is a new person. And so obviously there's the whole, okay, there's clearly somebody has a motive here, and it has to be connected to this larger thing, very much of a scare her away from finding out too much kind of thing. But it doesn't make it hurt any less that their motive is based on her work and not on her person, like her personal choices or her religion or anything. It hurts just as bad, but she
Hmm.
doesn't know what's happening, and she doesn't have a person she can go to and be like, yeah, this guy did it or this woman did it. She's just like, well, great, now I feel unsafe, and I feel unsafe walking to my car or being any place alone, and that's just not a place anybody wants to be, especially in their livelihood, to have to choose between safety and their paycheck.
Exactly. And and the whole like reliving, right? Because like even when she goes back, she's always like, okay, is somebody looking out for me? And she's all constantly like, and and that's what it is like you constantly feel that, and you're reminded of that trauma that you went through when you first, and that's why she's like, I've changed my office. I don't want to be back in that office, because if I go back there, I'll be constantly reminded of what went on here. And having been through that, I know that I still dread sometimes, like moving my chair when I come back from lunch is like,
Mm.
what I'm saying? Like, I'm very careful about who comes to my office, and like who leaves my office, and I'm very cognizant of what's going on. So, and I think that's the reason why, I don't want to give up too much, but like, there's a reason why
The
that
job's
change
top
happened.
secret. Shh.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep. Yeah. So yeah, so I mean, a lot of these little tidbits in the book are based on, real life experiences, and that's why this story is so close to my heart.
Do you have somebody who loves filet o fish? Because I love filet o fish, and I was
Uh,
very happy to see filet o fish representation, which I did not
Yes.
expect. I'm like, I expected in a Desi romance, I expect good food from Southeast Asia. I do not expect filet o fish from McDonald's. I'm like, is that halal? It doesn't seem like it would be, but I guess probably it is. Maybe
Fish,
nuggets.
yeah, fish, everything fish is halal
Yeah.
as long as it's prepared, away from the other meat
Mhm.
products. Like, it's not like fried with the same. Most of the times, fish is fried separately.
Oh yeah,
I
because
think,
of allergies too. Because there's some people who are allergic to fish. That's true.
yeah, and I think the smell too. The oil smells. That's what I've been
My
told.
My eldest daughter hates fish. Everybody else in our family loves it. And so, like, whenever she's out of town, because she's old enough now that she goes to things like camps and stuff. And so, whenever she's gone, it's like fish week. We can have all the fish because she doesn't even like the smell in the house. So, I understand that's not something that's out of character. But I also learned don't put it in the air fryer because your air fryer will never stop smelling like fish sticks.
Yeah, and we have people at work who are like, please do not microwave fish in this microwave. Like,
The
strict
whole place.
exactly,
Yep.
strict instructions in our lunchroom about no microwaving fish. So, like, because
Apparently not.
the smell lingers. And
Well,
different fishes are, some of the fishes, they do, the smell stays, my God, for
yeah, it
days.
just like lingers. It's just stuck there. It's like that was a week ago we had that. Why is it? I guess it's just never leaving. All right. Yeah,
It's
no,
just
most of the food that you mentioned, and I joke that I'm a foodie who writes, and that you're not allowed to read my books while you're doing any kind of fasting because it's kind of a rude form of torture. But your books are just as bad with all this food, and I loved the nosy neighbor who's like, "Oh, I see your mother's cooking a lot. Oh, and like almost fishing for an invite. Yeah, you can come over later." She's doing all that, but I loved all that. Are you the cook in your family, or is there like a mother or an auntie who cooks for you, or maybe a brother or somebody who's making all of that for you?
Okay, so I'm not as big a cook as my mom used to be. My mom was a bigger cook. Like, she would cook all these different things. I cook for survival, but I do cook.
The same way. I'm the kind of person who I want to be a better cook, and then when I buy ingredients and somehow mess them up terribly, like I posted on Instagram the fudge that I made that just came out completely wrong. It crystallized instantly. Like, this is not what fudge should do. It should not become a rock. I couldn't even get it out without having to almost use an ice pick to get it back out, and then it came out all at once. But I'm going, this isn't edible. So I'm like you. I'm a survival cook, but I want to be a better cook, and I want to learn how to make things that I love to eat instead of being like, yes, I have to rely on all the restaurants around me because my wallet does not really like that. But then when they do it right and I mess it up, then I'm going, this is why I have to go and get the foods from there because incompetent.
My sister, she's a better cook than me, and she
Mine
makes,
too.
yeah, she's, oh my God, she makes all these different dishes that I wish I could make as well as her. But that comes from lifetime of cooking, and she's a stay-at-home mom. So I'm like, okay, well,
You have
I
the time.
you have the time to perfect the recipes. And she says, look, cooking is a lot of trial and error. Like, there is not going to be a dish, especially like desi dishes, because our moms, they don't like really measure by spoon.
No.
They're
It's
just
all we
like,
use about this much of that, and that's the
yeah,
right color, so that's
exactly.
right. What does it smell?
Yeah, exactly. So they don't like
Exactly.
do this accurate cooking. So everything is like sort of like, estimation. So that's why she's like, a lot of these recipes are trial and error, and cooking
Mhm.
is trial and error. One time you won't make it right, but the next time you will. And if even if you don't do it the second time, eventually you will make it.
Eventually.
Eventually,
Well, and
especially the complicated ones, the ones with
exactly.
the
Like the layers and the steps, and if you mess up step 3, step 7, it doesn't even matter by then because you already botched it 4 steps ago and you're like, forget it, this isn't going to become anything. It's going to be garbage soup. It's going away now. And my sister, she's the better cook, and she's the one who's able to taste these things and pick out the special spices and flavors and knows where to find them all. She's like, oh yeah, just go and get this stuff and do that. I'm like, how did you even know what to do based on this? She has a way more accurate like tongue sensation than I. That sounds wrong, but you know what I mean. Like she's better at figuring those things out, and she's willing to do the trial and error. And I get too easily frustrated with it, where I'm like, I ruined dinner
that's what I'm saying. She probably has a lot more patience than you for wrong when
for
the recipe.
everything.
Yeah, exactly. When the recipes turn out wrong, and that's what it is. It's honestly, it is a lot of like,
It is.
you go in and you try it and it doesn't turn out, then you say, okay, next time we'll do
This
better
was
next time.
this was not it. We are trying over again. And having the tools also helps because she had been on me for years. And I finally, one of my Christmas presents this year was a rice maker because I can't make rice. I do it. And I'm like, how did I mess this up? I messed it up again. It's all stuck to the bottom and half of it's burned and the other half is not cooked. So I now have my little pink rice maker and it makes perfect rice. And I'm like, I'm so glad I have a proper rice maker now. Now I can actually, like, my kids are all excited. This is like the best rice. I'm like, it's just properly cooked. Don't get all that excited. Like, bad cook before now has proper tools. Yay.
Yeah, rice is, I mean, I must admit, rice is something that you get used to. And I think every brand of rice
Yeah.
is different. Like, you have to, like, I didn't know this. I learned this from especially like we eat a lot of rice and we are picky about our rice. Like, it can't be too soft, it can't be too mushy, it can't be too watery. It has to be like done right.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, you have to like know your brand, and how long you soak them, and the
Mm-hmm.
water and rice ratio has to be correct.
Exactly. Because if you mess that up, you're either getting like little gooey gum stuff, which you're like, no, or it just never gets soft. And it doesn't matter how long you cook it, it's going to get
Mhm.
harder instead of softer. And like, well, I blew that. So hopefully
Yeah.
mine's kind of idiot proof because when it comes to cooking stuff like that, idiot. So it helps to have like those kind of things, like exactly this much, rinse it first, do all that. I'm like, okay, I can follow
And
very
wash. I
wash.
wash my rice like three
Yes.
times.
Are
Yeah.
you triple? Okay, I'm going to start triple washing mine to see if that improves it.
Yeah, I think they say
Afterwards,
the
you have to like
starch.
brands
Yeah.
that you like. I'm like, what's the good brand of rice? I don't know if I would even be able to get it here in California.
Mhm.
Happy
I mean,
seems to
I
be
think basmati, like
mhm,
I like basmati, and my kids love basmati. So
mhm,
if you are like I use either Zebra brand, but they're like specific to the Indian stores.
mhm.
So, but you can buy online too. I think Amazon
Some
has
of
a
them
lot.
can, and I'm not too far from some of the communities that have those kind of stores. And it just
Hmm.
depends on like which way I go to find which community. It's like, okay, this where is where I can find all the Vietnamese ingredients. This is where I can go and find all the Middle Eastern ingredients. I just have to know which store I'm going to. And then sometimes I go inside and I can't read anything. So I'm in trouble. I'm like,
Okay.
uh
I think with basmati, like in general, it's 2:1. Like, so 1 cup of rice, 2 cups of water, or one and a half. Play around with it the way you like the rice, and then I think that's usually how I did it. Especially in a rice cooker, you'll be
yeah.
okay if you go
Like
that way.
it'll save me from terrible rice, and my kids are like, "Mom, you ruined the rice." I'm like, "I tried." So the other thing that I love that you really talk about in this is the whole idea, and as much as I love rice, I love love, and the idea of ishq. And it wasn't a term I'd ever heard of before, but I love how the idea of she's looking at the difference between a love that could grow, but maybe starts as friendship, and then this kind of overwhelming romantic love. It's something she's seen in Bollywood movies and wondering like, well, is that even really a thing? Is that something I should be holding out for? And I'm assuming that that's something that you've experienced in your own life, and you're not like, yep, I married because, well, it seemed like the thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think what it is I've seen both, right? I've seen the kind of love that's all consuming, and And I've seen the love that grows, and one isn't better than the other because
Exactly.
they're both really good. I just think it's in her situation, she had experienced that with somebody else and she knew what it was like, and she was just chasing that. And
Yeah.
that wasn't the right thing to do then, to go get married to somebody else.
And
I
it's not
think
fair to somebody else when it's like my heart is still set on this other person. And if that person wasn't in her life, like there would be that room to become
exactly.
that. But when someone else is like, sorry, that person already captured my heart, not much I can do. Like,
Exactly. And they have so much history together too. Like
yes,
it's not like, Adam, where she was gonna build on stuff, but like with Daniel and her, they've had so much of their lives lived already
yeah,
together, that it was hard to replicate that with anybody else. So I think what I was trying to do in the book was I was trying to say, no way is wrong or right, because her sister found love the
yes.
traditional way and she was
Hmm.
happy, and she's, you know, the same kind of happiness she wanted for herself. Whereas she was trying to go that route, but that just would not happen for her
Yeah,
because
it couldn't for her because of her background. And I love how you didn't make it like this is good and why would you do that? Like I feel like you didn't put down the kinds of the partnerships that become that all-consuming love, but they don't start that way because it doesn't start that way with anybody. The reason it was like that for her and Daniel was because they knew each other and it grew from that natural friendship and that childhood friendship and how cute that was and like him sticking up for her when they like she wouldn't remember the verse. She'd be getting yelled at and he's like, I know. He's like, I didn't ask you to stand up for me. I'm like, oh, he's so sweet, he's trying to help her out because she doesn't remember what she's supposed to say.
Yeah, and that's what it was. It's like, there's people, and there were verses in here that they took out in editing, but I was talking about how in spirituality, in Islamic spirituality, there's this whole idea of there's souls that you meet before you come into this world, and those souls that they meet in, it's not purgatory, that's not the right word, but there's
That's
a
how it's
nicer place. There's a nicer place where souls are kept before they come into this world. And if they make friendships there, you kind of continue them in this world. And they could be like, me and you, Allison,
just
or
friendship too.
just
The people that
friendship.
you have, because
Yeah.
there's people like that where the people that you connect with and you go, I feel like I've known you forever, and yet we just met, or we've only even met online, but I know we're connected somehow. And so I totally am down with that. I feel that too, because there's people that you've been in just affinity with, and there's still no connection. And then other people you're like, oh, we just clicked, and those people. And when that can become a marriage and a partnership and raising a family together and navigating your families together, because I mean that's one of the other things you handle so beautifully is the extended family network and navigating that. And seriously, people with extended families who everyone has different strains and all that, I feel like you need a roadmap to figure out, okay, we got to say this person's ailing, this person's pregnant, that person has some additional care needs over. How are we supposed to do all this without losing our sanity along the way? Which is probably why it's good to have somebody to go with you while you're doing it.
Exactly. No, yeah, I think our marriages, that's why they're like 6 days or 7 days, because it really is trying to, dampen all the fires that were caused on the second day, or the auntie that wasn't happy, and then we have to all appease her. So
Did you have
there's
one of those aunties? Don't answer that because the aunties are watching now and going, Noreen, how dare you? Not
no,
invited.
it happens with most. Like, I know every single marriage, like, function that I've been to, there has been one disgruntled uncle or auntie, and we've all
Always.
experienced that, where the food wasn't served right or whatever, and they were just offended. So um,
Mhm.
that's why our marriages are long, because we have to pacify everybody, and it takes that long.
Like, hold on. After a week, is everybody happy? Everybody? You good? Okay, can we go now and start our lives together? Because
I
this is
know, right? And by the time everybody's sick of everybody, and okay, we've
oh,
seen
that's
each other enough times.
well, and I loved. I mean, I don't want to say too much about what happens in the latter half of the book because I don't want to spoil any of the stuff that happens. But I loved how it's like, okay, so we have this comes first, like the nikah comes first, and then it's like, but there's also an engagement before that, and then all these things. So it's like you got some time there to work out the kinks and engagement parties, and then buying presents for different family members. I'm like, is that something that most cultures do? Because that's not something that I've ever had to do or ever like heard of as a common culture thing. Is we're buying presents for our in-laws? Is it like bribery to be nice to me when I come in? Please, I think it's very nice.
Yeah, I think it's just a welcome to the family type of thing. Like, I
Okay.
think the mother-in-law, like, my sister's daughter just got, and we were just talking about, because she's going to Pakistan for the wedding shopping. I mean, that's how much it is, right? You buy,
Yes.
so like, I think usually the mother-in-law gets gifts. I think and at different parts of India are different. Like, I just
Mhm.
think that that's our family tradition. Mostly northeast Muslims, or like Muslims from the area that speak Urdu are. We
Mhm.
usually get the girl side of the family will get gifts for everybody in the boys side of the family, and the boys. Okay, so the way it works in our weddings is that the bride's family buys all of the things for the groom side of the family, and
Okay.
the gift for the groom side of the family, and the girl side vice versa. So like, but nowadays, obviously, they used to, back in the day, they used to buy all these things,
Mhm.
and but nowadays everybody just exchanges money, and the girl's like,
Just
okay,
buy your own stuff. Here's a gift card to Amazon.
exactly, and then we'll just buy, and match and coordinate. Like,
Mhm.
nowadays, it's a big deal, right? The groom and the bride have to coordinate their outfits and
Of
things
course.
like that. So if she's wearing pink, then he'll have a pink little thing, like a handkerchief or something, like, there's somehow
Something. Like an
coordinated,
accessory, not his
in the
entire
second.
outfit. Like,
Yeah, and
that's too
like
much
the
pink.
jewelry.
My eyes are bleeding trying to watch all that pink. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and then and then the jewelry and things. So yeah, so that's part of just welcome to the family, and it's a good occasion, so we're gonna buy gifts for each other type of thing. And back in the day, it used to be uncles and aunts and everybody, but now they've cut it
Everybody.
down to just immediate
How
family.
about just the people who actually raised this child? They're real. Okay. How about who lived in the house? Okay, that narrows it down, but maybe not by much because you have extended families living together. Everybody still is there. Like, where's my gift? I would like my gift too. I would like to just be there for all of the food part because again, feed me. I'm happy with that.
Anytime you're in Jersey,
I'm
Allison.
coming. I'm coming. I'll be like, can you do this? I mean, as it is, like my sister is the best cook and she now lives in Texas and her extended family on her husband is Korean. And so she's taken all the good homemade Korean food with her. So I'm going, who's making me banchans now? Like I have to figure it out. I can't do that. That's more complicated. She's like, it's chopping cucumber and some rice wine vinegar and some sesame seeds. You can't screw that up. I'm like, watch me. I will cut myself. So, like I usually actually my thing is usually I burn myself somehow. Not I don't cut myself very often, but I burn myself a lot. So everybody's like, can you handle a rice cooker? I'm like, it's cool to the touch. See, outside is fine.
You'll be
Noreen,
fine.
you're amazing. And you have another book coming out relatively quickly. Like you already have another one coming. Can you tell us just a little bit about that before we wrap? Because we're almost at 40 minutes. And I know you have like a real job you have to get back to. This author thing is your night job, your secondary identity, and
No, I love
school is
talking
your
to you
lunch.
too, Allison. It's just been such a pleasure, and I just like, I feel the love across the stream. So,
Well,
um,
I loved your book, and I'm like, you have another one coming out. It's like a Dusty Wedding related, so I feel like
yes,
it's good that I'm learning this now because I'm going to need it going in.
so this is part of an anthology. It's called "Make My Big Fat Desi Wedding," and
Oh,
this
I
is
love
a
it.
YA anthology. And I have a short story in there. It's called "The Wedding Biryani," and of course, there's
Food,
food,
of
right?
course
Of
there is.
course, there's
Really,
food.
I love it.
So it's about these two high school rivals turned lovers ish, so
Ish, not ish, just
yeah,
ish.
because the short story we can't have the whole arc. But these two, they're in they're in debate teams, and
Oh, I love it.
they sort of don't like each other at the
Not just
beginning of the
rivals,
story.
but like smart nerd rivals. That I'm
Yeah,
totally down with that.
and
I
she's
love.
curvy, so she's curvy, plus size, and he is he's going through some stuff, and he's like Zayn Malik type of heartthrob. So yeah, and Sana makes a tiny, teeny, tiny reference appearance in there too.
I was
Sana
like, ta-da!
Khan. Yes. So yeah, it's a very cool. I think it's a very cool follow up to this book, and I'm super excited because there's all desi vetting. So like the
I love it.
theme is a desi vetting. So there's definitely food references. There's a lot of vetting references in this particular one. They are rivals who now have to cook a wedding biryani together. So yeah, so they are in the kitchen trying to heat things up.
Rivals in the kitchen just sounds like someone's gonna lose a toe, like a knife's gonna go down, something's gonna happen. It sounds dangerous, honestly. So I hope everybody is like properly, like aprons, hot pads, everything safe. Okay, guys,
Yep.
everybody safe. Noreen,
Yep.
you're amazing. I'm so glad your debut is out and it's the book of your heart. And if you haven't read it, go read it. You have dual narrators. I got to listen to it. They were awesome. So if you're like, I don't have time to read a book, yeah, you do. Just go listen to it. And I'm going to get the anthology when it comes out. So that one's not out yet. When's it coming out? Because it's coming out. Is
I
it this year
think
or next
it's
year?
out. Yeah, it just came out this Tuesday,
It
actually.
just did? Okay,
It
then I haven't.
just did. It
Okay,
just
then I
did.
need to go find it because
Yes.
I rarely read short stories that are like romance short stories. It feels like the anthologies seem to be more limited to sci-fi or horror. Like those are the kind of stories you get. So I'm excited to read like heart throb instead of like heart stab.
I think there's I think there's a couple of stories that are a little bit magic realism, so you might enjoy
I
those
love
too.
Yeah, but I
Yep.
love magical realism. So bring that on. I love it.
Yep. Yep.
Noreen, you're amazing. I will have to let you get back to your work because you have the government on your shoulder. Tell you what to do. And your kid did not make an appearance. I was waiting to be like, hello, and guest star Noreen's children.
No, they decided to stay away. I think they know to, like, when the door is closed, that they know
Yes.
to stay out.
Did they have a snow day?
No, not today. Probably tomorrow morning we'll hear something, either delayed opening. I don't think they're given entire snow day, but maybe delayed opening.
Yeah, like some of the places I was asking my sister because she had a delay to open. I'm like, but there's no snow, and she's like, yeah, but it's 0 degrees. I'm like, yeah, maybe don't send the kids out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like a hassle because it's like, okay, what am I gonna do? Now I have to call
2 hours,
in.
and now I got to
I'm
get you
not coming
there.
to
And
be 2 hours late.
that's annoying. Well,
Yep.
hopefully it'll get smoother and we all survive the snowmageddon and the ice and Domino's plows all of our roads, whether or not we want pizza. Like, does anybody else do that? Are they going to deliver me Thai food?
Well, now I know.
Now
Now I
you
know.
know. Order Domino's just to get the free. Well, I don't think it's free, but get the free plowing out of it.
Right. Yes, exactly. Thank you
Noreen,
so
you're
much.
amazing. I'm so excited for everything that's coming out for you, and that's already come out. Go
Thank
find her
you.
book. It's scrolling along at the bottom, but if not, it's tagged in all the comments so you can find it. But see you guys next time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.